For 1,000 generations, the Sith plagued the galaxy. Initially, they were a unique species with red skin, most notably led by King Adas, a powerful wielder of the dark side who possessed a semblance of honor. However, the true evolution into the Order of Sith Lords didn't occur until 7,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. This transformation followed the 100-Year Darkness, a tumultuous era that ended with the defeat of the Dark Jedi, led by the infamous Ajunta Pall. Instead of destroying these defeated Darksiders, the Jedi chose mercy over destruction, exiling them to the far reaches of space. This decision, though intended to be kind, inadvertently set the stage for a dark transformation. When these exiles arrived on Korriban, they conquered the native Sith species, marking the beginning of the Sith Order. This order would come to symbolize the enduring power and persistence of the dark side throughout history. Over the coming millennia, the Sith Empire achieved many things, but were almost always defeated. From Naga Sadow to Exile Kun and even Emperor Vitiate, all were eventually defeated by the Jedi. Through the very nature of the dark side, the Sith Empire was often weakened by competing Sith Lords, a weakness often exploited by the Jedi. But the Sith limped on for millennia, slowly losing their power. Eventually, the Sith sought to prevent the constant infighting that had weakened their order over the millennia, declaring that each of them would be equals. This, though, was a fundamental misunderstanding of the dark side, an energy that required competition, strength, and power to be fully harnessed. Darth Bane, in his wisdom, recognized this weakness. Bane destroyed the Sith Order using a dark side ritual, using this destruction to transform the Sith into something entirely different, the rule of two Sith. By obliterating the Sith Order and establishing the rule of two, Bane not only safeguarded the Sith legacy, but also primed the stage for their eventual reprisal. It was under the ominous rule of Darth Sidious, a rule of two Sith, that the Sith Order's long-cherished goal was actualized, the formation of the Galactic Empire, an empire unchallenged under the rule of the Sith. Yet, this epoch of Sith domination was fleeting. The Jedi re-emerged from the ashes of near annihilation, ultimately toppling the Empire. Palpatine died at the hands of his apprentice Vader, and the Sith appeared to be vanquished. However, after Palpatine, the Sith lineage continued, first through the lost tribe of the Sith, a topic for another day, and Darth Krayt. Krayt, a Sith Lord of unprecedented might and foresight, repudiated the rule of two, criticizing it as an archaic tenet that culminated in Sidious's demise at the hands of Vader. To Krayt, Bane's strategy, while pioneering in his era, had evolved into a hindrance. Krayt posited that Sidious, upon clinching the Galactic Empire, ought to have forsaken this rule, doing away with Vader and fully embracing the mantle of the one Sith that Palpatine had come close to implementing. Hence, under Darth Krayt's stewardship, the Sith underwent a profound reformation. Krayt introduced the Rule of One, a doctrine that championed the absolute sovereignty of a solitary, unopposed Sith Lord, buttressed by a cadre of followers. This somewhat novel paradigm envisioned by Krayt signified a divergence from the constraints of Bane's philosophy. At the heart of the Rule of One was the enshrinement of a solitary Dark Lord of the Sith, epitomizing the Sith Order in its entirety. Darth Krayt assumed this mantle, reshaping the Sith into a monolithic entity with subordinates, minions, and disciples rallying under one banner. This framework seemed to rectify the deficiencies of bygone Sith overlords, who frequently fell to petty conflicts and bids for supremacy. Krayt cultivated fanatical, almost devout allegiance among his followers, thereby forestalling any insurrection that might jeopardize his ascendancy. This strategy did retain facets of age-old Sith traditions. The master-apprentice dynamic was upheld, with each master mentoring their selected apprentice. Yet, the culmination of this mentorship diverged markedly from historical precedent. Rather than the apprentice overthrowing the master to manifest their ascendancy and vigor, the act of murdering their mentor morphed into an expression of absolute fealty to Darth Krayt and his Sith crusade. On the surface, Darth Krayt's Rule of One emerged as a stroke of strategic brilliance, and indeed, it manifested effectively for a brief period, coming close to conquering the galaxy once again. Krayt's Rule of One aimed to synthesize the merits of disparate Sith philosophies, the numerical advantage of the ancient Sith Orders, the singular vision emblematic of the Rule of Two, and a level of loyalty reminiscent of that commanded by Sith legends such as Marco Ragnos, and most notably Darth Vitiate. Like Krayt, Vitiate too had placed all power in himself, creating an empire of devout servants. But again, just like Vitiate, the very bedrock of Darth Krayt's Sith dominion, the Rule of One, inevitably catalyzed its unraveling. There are a few reasons for this. The first was its reliance on many lesser Sith who could never hope to achieve the rank of leader, echoing the mistakes by the Brotherhood of Darkness a millennia earlier. The quelling of ambition and rivalry, fundamental aspects of Sith creed, precipitated complacency in the Sith's enduring pursuit of personal empowerment and mastery over the dark side. Therefore, despite its envisioned unity and potency, the Rule of One inherently conflicted with the Sith's essence. It endeavoured to suppress the very flames of ambition and treachery that had, through the eons, fueled the Sith's power and endurance. Like the Brotherhood of Darkness, Darth Krayt's blueprint, though majestic, constituted too radical a departure from the quintessential tenets that had historically defined and perpetuated the Sith and their power across the millennia. The same was true of Darth Krayt himself. If his vision had gone to plan, he would never have had any challenges. He simply would have continued to exist as the sole ruler of the Sith, never really requiring any more power than was absolutely necessary. Contrastingly, the Rule of Two, which Krayt deemed deficient, had historically been the lifeline of the Sith's endurance. It engendered a perpetual cycle of rejuvenation, with each acolyte eventually ascending to supplant their mentor, thereby ensuring the continuity of the Sith doctrine and ever-increasing power for the Order. Thus, the Rule of Two celebrated the disposability of individual Sith in favour of an overarching mission, a notion Krayt and his acolytes neglected to honour. Thus, the Rule of One's insistence on undivided loyalty to a sole figurehead engendered a pivotal vulnerability. It was contingent upon the prowess and foresight of that figurehead, here Krayt. If the leader were to waver or their vision be short-sighted, the entire Order stood at risk of atrophy or disintegration. Therefore, a pivotal flaw was embedded within the core of this paradigm, a flaw personified by Krayt himself. By casting himself as the linchpin of the Sith's unity, Krayt inadvertently morphed into both their paramount strength and their most critical point of fragility. This reality was not only recognized by the Jedi, but also by the spectres and custodians of the ancient Sith holocrons, such as Darth Bane, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Ndedu. These Sith Lords, despite their disparate ideologies, unanimously pinpointed the other intrinsic fragility in Krayt's scheme, the absence of a viable succession plan. They realized that the one Sith's demise was predestined in the event of Darth Krayt's fall. The architecture of this system was such that Krayt's demise would precipitate a power vacuum too immense to bridge. His hubris in his eternalness and his dogged pursuit of immortality underscores this fundamental miscalculation. Krayt's egotism and conviction of his own indestructibility starkly clashed with the tenets Darth Bane championed. Bane comprehended that the fear of death and an obsession with immortality weakened the Sith Order as a whole, whereas embracing one's replaceability made the Sith Order more powerful. This ideological discord was at the heart of Krayt's undoing. The story of Darth Krayt ultimately proved these ancient Sith correct. Due to the inherent contradictions of the Rule of One Sith, Darth Krayt was eventually betrayed by one of his own. Although he survived, he made no real changes to the Sith structure despite his near-death experience. And, in the end, Darth Krayt's eventual fall to Cade Skywalker vindicated the ancient Sith's predictions. Following Krayt's end, the Sith helm was assumed by Darth Nihil. Nevertheless, Nihil did not match Krayt's caliber or foresight. Indeed, the Jedi tactically decided not to pursue the diminished Sith menace. Under conventional circumstances, this would be a tactical blunder, yet in this context, it represented a pragmatic decision. Stripped of its robust leadership, the Sith commenced their descent into disarray and infighting, a fact the Jedi were well aware of. The Sith Lords dispersed, their cohesion disintegrated, and the Order almost entirely crumbled. Darth Red soon exterminated Darth Nihil and seized command. Red emerged as their new leader, reverting back to the rule of two. Alas, the damage was irreversible. The Sith had dwindled to a mere echo of their former magnificence, a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in overly centralized power, and the folly of deviating excessively from the foundational principles that had buttressed the Sith across the ages. The Sith Order, already on the precipice of disintegration, encountered further upheaval when Darth Red, hardly the most powerful Sith Lord to ever live, failed to secure an apprentice. Shortly after, he met his end at the hands of Anius Solo. This event signalled the formal and pretty pathetic end of the Sith Order. Though it is speculated that some Sith, potentially including Darth Talon, survived, it is plausible that an individual among them, possibly Darth Talon, might have aspired to rejuvenate the Sith Order. Nonetheless, their unyielding allegiance to Darth Krayt and dependence on his power rendered them aimless and greatly weakened. The extinction of the Sith Order cannot be ascribed to Darth Red or his ineffectual application of the Rule of Two. The foundational reason for the Order's decline traces back to Darth Krayt. Despite his extraordinary might and intellect, Krayt's principal shortcoming was his arrogance, the conviction of his everlasting existence, and the stupid belief in the perfection of his rule of one Sith. Krayt, straying from the classical Sith doctrines, especially his neglect to the Rule of Two, planted the seeds for the Order's ultimate destruction. The ancient Sith Lords, who had cautioned him against the hazards of his chosen course, were vindicated in their foresight. Krayt's strategy was to consolidate power and stifle the intrinsic drive for ambition and competition amongst the Sith. This stood in stark opposition to the core tenets that perpetuated the Sith's endurance through the millennia, ensuring that the Sith would be forever weakened and ultimately destroyed.